Welcome to the Evolution Show. I'm Johan Landgren. In the previous episode, I really enjoyed my conversation with the super inspiring Douglas Malewicki, an American rocket scientist, inventor, and Guinness record holder, as well as adventurer that shows that keeping sharp and healthy over the years is very possible. Today, Douglas Malewicki is back on the show to talk about different transport solutions for the future, including bike highways. He will also give his take on riding a Tesla on autopilot, electric trucks, and podcars. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do, don't forget, give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. So stick around to stay ahead of the curve and stay electric here on the Evolution Show. Welcome back to the Evolution Show, Douglas Malewicki. In the previous episode, we talked about your super inspiring background as a rocket scientist, inventor, and writer, and how you became an inspiration to a Disney and Pixar character. We also talked about how you have kept in super good health through the years, and I really got inspired, so I highly encourage people to check out the previous episode to learn more about Doug's very inspiring background. And today we're going to talk about the future of transportation, because that's very much in line with what you have been working on for basically whole your life in different aspects. And I thought we should cover electric and non-electric transport solutions, including what's called bike highways. We'll also talk a little bit about Tesla and electric trucks. And I thought we could start off by talking about bikes, Doug, because apart from working with rockets, submarines, podcars, and various inventions of your own, you have also worked on the design of different bikes. And you have told me that bikes actually can help to decrease the congestion on the road significantly with so-called bike highways. So before we go into the electric space, electric cars and so on, could you explain a little bit, talk a little bit about the role of bikes and how they can improve, what part they can play in building a sustainable transport system if we move outside the car box, so to speak?
Oh boy, to me, it's all about cost. If we could figure out, and I've got a few ideas, how to make really cheap, elevated bikeways up in the sky, and we also, and this is easy nowadays, each bike that's allowed on the skyway has a sensor on its back wheel or fender or seat, back of the seat, and on the front. So now all of a sudden you've got some like emergency brake detection. So you've got to get in pace with all the people ahead of you. The beauty of the bikes is the capacity. And why that happens is because just the way bikes are. You, when you're riding, people are comfortable with the spacing between his front wheel and the person's back wheel, about 2 bike wheel diameters is comfortable. That's because we don't have a big box of a truck or a car in front of us, and we can see what's going on with bikes 3 or 4 ahead of us. And so you feel comfortable mentally to do that. Normally on a freeway with cars, you need 2 seconds to just kind of be relaxed driver, okay? Here, you can get by, I think it's about 1/3 of a second. And this is as good as the future autonomous cars will get. In other words, early on with the autonomous cars, they talked about you can triple the freeway capacity, which I totally understand. But I don't hear any of them talking about that anymore. Maybe it's just too scary to the population. I'll have to introduce that slowly. But once we have every car is autonomous, that's one solution to the transportation capacity problem. But anyway, with the bikes, my math shows for the same amount of money, you could build 10 miles of subway, okay? Which is like 250 million to 500 million a mile. You could cover a city with like 400 miles, especially the city centers. And the hourly capacity for the subway is like 200,000, This would be about 500,000 per hour, doing all like 10-mile trips. The 10-mile subway, which isn't going to serve a big city like, say 40 by 40 miles, but this bikeway thing could. And it also solves what's called the last mile problem. You just bike to work. Yeah.
Last and first mile.
Yeah. Exactly. The last and the first and the last mile are solved. Yeah. Now you just need a place or a real small light bike you can take into the office with you. Besides, we got all this Zoom stuff. A lot of people, especially intellectual stuff, and a lot of things that are intellectual. In the old days, crazy dictators would start wars to steal resources from other places. Now the resources are intelligence. If you bomb Silicon Valley, you got nothing, because you killed all the smart people.
But I mean, if you compare different you mentioned subways, but I think you made this graph. We can show it when we talk later, and for people to see that you compare different modes of transports. And there you put in even self-driving cars, a Google car at the moment, at the time. But we can even put in a Tesla self-driving car, which is in the lead by far right now. And we'll come back to that. We'll come back to Tesla. But why do you think? I mean, you live in the US. I mean, there are bike highways, similar bike highway system. It's not the 100% version like you want to see from A to B, but it's like in Oslo in Norway, the capital of Norway, and I know in Germany they have built at least stretches of elevated bikeways where maybe 3 or 4 people, maybe at least 2 or 3 people at three lanes at each direction can ride. And that's basically what you're after. And many bikers that can go 2 directions without being interrupted by other traffic, right?
Correct. You need I'm looking at 2 like a freeway. The capacity is to have them following each other close, but you have 1 lane but a lot of pull-out lanes. Okay, so somebody has a problem, they can pull out. But that's where e-bikes could really be magnificent, because now you could be pacing automatically. You wouldn't have some old 82-year-old guy get on a bike and be going slow. Nah, I'm not slow. But if you could get everyone going 20, that'd be great. If you could get everyone going 30, it increases your capacity per hour, per dollar. Yeah. So that's an important thing, is to keep that guideway cheap. And then in the big cities, you probably can attach them to the buildings and have people get it on and off right in a certain, second floor, third floor of a building. And it wouldn't require, the stuff's got to be so light, it wouldn't require any civil engineering for that load. The load is insignificant compared to wind loads and seismic loads.
And what are we talking about? Are we removing maybe 20% or something of the passengers on the road that could go by bike? Because obviously not everyone can go by bike, but even if it's just 20%, that's a lot of people that could go by bike if you have bike highways.
Yeah, and if you can figure out how to make the guideways cheap, just think of 10 years later when all the young kids say, hey, why should I be messing around with this car and paying for parking, or even using Uber and stuff like that, when I can just bike to work. Obviously you can't go a 50-mile trip. It would be crazy, because that'd be 2 hours with a 25-mile-an-hour bike. But it'd be very, very cheap. People would save a lot of money, stuff like that. So that's got to be part of the future of any major central city. And you can, Ron Swenson, he would love to have a roof on this so he could put his solar panels there. Well, but now the loads and the winds get higher, so you got trade-offs. It's going to get expensive. If he's willing to pay for the roof and the strengthening of the guideway, we'd love to have solar panels on there.
Yeah, for people who don't know Ron, he might be on the show later, we'll see, but he's a friend of yours, and I met him a couple of times as well. He's a really nice guy.
Super good guy.
Solar dude, we can call him. Yeah, but anyway, so let's say that your bikes, that's part of the solution. That's something that can be complementary to other modes of transports. And I think people, I started with the bikes instead of starting with the self-driving cars, because people are just talking about self-driving cars. I think it's important to mention bikes as well and other modes, because they are, there's a synergy together that we have to work with, not just, one solution that solves everything. But if we move on then to self-driving cars and self-driving technologies, you told me that you not too long ago you were riding a Tesla with the autopilot on. So for people who don't know that, many people know, but what's your experience with the self-driving technology that are actually out there right now?
And this has been around for 3 years. I have one running backpacking friend that's had one for 3 years. He's already over probably 150,000 miles on his Model S. So this other gal we know, she's a real estate agent, she decided she's going to drive the group up. We're going to go to Mount Baldy. So we're driving. About 20 minutes later, I'm looking, she's not touching the steering wheel, and I'm going, what's going on here? She's, oh, it's on autopilot. I says, what? It left the shopping center where we all meet and left our cars. Turn here, pays attention to the lights, goes where you wanted it to go, turns onto the other freeway, and then we didn't even notice it till we're passing like Angels Stadium. And I'm saying, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I think something that people tend to forget, that even without autopilot, I mean, even if it's not 100%, self-driving all the time, they have already looked at the statistics, and it saves a lot of lives right now. The safety improvements with self-driving technologies, it can automatically stop. For example, if there's a car, it sees several hundred meters ahead, and if it's something happening, it will stop much faster than you will actually, than a human will. So yeah, it's really interesting to see, I think.
I understand that emergency braking and detection is becoming pretty common on all cars, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a step there.
Yes.
It is so complicated to make cars perfectly autonomous. It is so complicated being on a guideway, with a simple little machine.
Yeah.
And there's no cross traffic, and so it is complicated, and they're doing it.
But I think we'll get there, because that's something to discuss. But it's the more miles you can gather. I know Elon Musk talks about this last 1% or 1 or 2%, which the self-driving algorithm and can't figure out at the moment. But he said that the more cars that are out there that are faced with these difficult situations, we will reach this point maybe in 1 or 2 years, even according to Tesla at least, that you could release vehicles. We'll see, self-driving Teslas that actually can manage this. So we'll see. But seeing what a Tesla can do already today, and bearing in mind what Tesla is expected to roll out, that would be revolutionary. That an update that's coming maybe even later this year, that will enable Tesla vehicles to almost drive by itself. Where do you see the biggest challenges? We've touched upon it, but challenges and opportunities with self-driving vehicles in your mind?
It's a whole new field, but you want to accelerate it. Like in the States, we kill, roughly 40,000 people get killed due to cars every year. And 93% of those supposedly are due to inattention. So, wow. But till these cars are perfected for all kind of insane situations that you can't even envision, you might still be killing 1,000 people. So as long as you're not one of the 1,000 who got killed by this autonomous car, it's wonderful. There's another 39,000 people that are still alive. And that's not the way the bureaucrats and these safety, what's the German safety regulators? Oh yeah, they worry about, your car could get struck by lightning one out of 2 million cars, and
But I can mention that talking about Germany, that was actually my follow-up question, because in Germany they're actually just recently, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago when this comes out, maybe 1 month ago, that they announced that they are preparing, the regulators in Germany are preparing regulations that will enable self-driving vehicles to drive on public roads as early as 2022, so next year, maybe. They're preparing the regulations for that will allow vehicles to drive without supervision. If the driver is asked to take over and don't respond, the vehicle will stop and wait for further instructions, stop by the side of the road or something. And the German regulations also,
it would pull over and park at the... That makes so much. That's brilliant. That makes so much sense. And the bozo who's sleeping, maybe that'll wake him up and start blasting the horn.
But it can also be a person who's having a heart attack or something like that. So then the car will stop, and the car, there's a camera inside, so it will see that the person is having a heart attack. Send an ambulance. So
I saw one of those once. Oh my God! Years and years ago in Arizona, this car just started driving, crossing the lanes, going off into the dirt, and then down into a ditch. The guy was unconscious and had a heart attack.
That's terrible.
So out of that 40,000 a year, I wonder how many are like that. Just like the COVID.
So that's...
I mean, just to mention that it's coming, and the regulations are. I know exactly what you mean. We don't know how fast it will be. Different markets, and even within Germany, I expect there will be different places that have regulations between. Like they have in the US, you have different states. They also have different states within Germany. So I don't know if this is going to be. I think this is going to be a national regulation, but we'll see. But it's coming anyway. So, but assuming, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, the thing about it is not our grandkids, the kids, I say grandkids, they'll question, Gramps, how come they didn't start those earlier? Just 5 years ago, they were saying, well, we might have some mostly autonomous cars by the year 2035. It's starting to happen now. It's wonderful. There's a lot of people working on this safety features.
Yeah, and I think it's happening much faster, and you know very much about this, the exponential function, things happening with technology. It's happening, the rate of pace is increasing in terms of change, and that's we see that in all technologies, whether it's AI or self-driving tech. But so assuming we see this first rollout of a fully self-driving vehicle or fully self-driving electric cars, I would say, at least in certain markets, where do you see the biggest challenges there? Do you think we can reach this 1% we're talking about, or do you think there is ways around that, during this transition until we reach this 100% self-driving, where it's not even a driving wheel,
Yeah, I say 10 years ago, I would have thought that until you couldn't even do autonomous cars until everyone has autonomous cars, but they're being smart enough they can figure out, all the crazy things people do and all the other impossible stuff that they're going to deal with. It's just amazing. Oh, that's one of my other ideas, by the way. I want to have or Uber should do it. They should have a special little machine, no steering wheel, no brakes on it, that can go to the old people's home, and they can just roll into it with their wheelchair, and it takes them wherever they want to go. And it has a little room for if they want to get some groceries or beer or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's coming. I actually think that's something. Yeah. No, I'm sure this will make sense for many reasons. I mean, also, it saves cost if you have an electric vehicle. Right now, a gasoline costs, fuel costs a lot of money for people to go places. But if you can lower that cost and also remove the driver, then it should be. It's not free, but it will be very cheap, I think, to go places if you have this autonomous vehicle. So, yeah. But something you would like to add to that, or otherwise I have some other aspects I would like to touch on. Because if we remove the ability to control the vehicle and the driver's seat altogether, we come to something very interesting. Recently I I talked about an electric truck called the pod. It's called actually Einride Pod, but it's made by this Swedish startup called Einride. And they have actually removed. They're making heavy electric trucks now that don't even have a cabin, not even a driving cabin. And they're first in the world, and they are actually using this commercially now in Sweden. It's a small place. It's this distribution center where you have trucks coming and going. So within this area, between buildings, this one of these pods or two of these pods are going to pick up stuff. But they're actually driving on a public strip of road, and they've been accepted to do this. So you have seen this episode, and so what do you think about this? What's your impression of these trucks from Einride?
I love that they got rid of the cabin, but as a low-speed aerodynamic engineer, I want to help that guy. What I read, okay, this is important. By not having to pay a driver, you just save 50% of your costs. And if it's electric, because same with cars. Electric costs, what it costs you to go a mile is about a third as if you're using gasoline. Plus you're not polluting. Well, the people who make the electricity are polluting, but we have to live with that. Oh, I'm on a sidetrack. I read an interesting thing. I wish I could find it for you. That if we just totally shut off anything operating on coal today, in about 3 months, about a third of the people would already be dead. We need energy. And
Definitely.
We need to do an episode on the new thorium reactors someday too. That is going to change the world. People, unfortunately, are freaked out over the old-time reactors that could do runaway stuff. But anyway, that's a side issue. I forgot what we're even talking.
Yeah, but we talked about the
Einride. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, I would love to work with him, and I also read that he's another Stanford guy. That was my other shirt. Yeah. And I mainly because I do want to make one of those little vehicles, even if it's a prototype, autonomous. What does the computer cost? What does it weigh? How many sensors on there? How many actuators and stuff like that? And then I can scale it down by a factor of 10 on the weight anyway. But he's done a wonderful job. Except for his aerodynamics, I would love to help him with that.
Yeah, I will definitely connect you with Robert and the team. We'll see what you can come up to. That will be interesting to see. But yeah, but okay, this moves us to next question. Because Einride, the idea is not only to remove the carbon emissions by going electric, and the pollutions from trucks. It's not only it's the NOx particles in the urban areas and so on, which are the main polluters. I mean the trucks are really not good. They're causing a lot of health issues for people. But by going electric and removing the driver, the operations cost could also decrease with about, we mentioned it, 50% removing the driver, and you add 20% on top of that for the going electric. Now the big question that follows is how can you make sure that the self-driving heavy trucks on the road decrease the congestion? Because as you know, you have worked on podcars, self-driving podcars, or Skytran and so on, and we know, I learned from the conference, we're listening to you and others, that just going electric and self-driving is not a simple the only solution. It won't solve the congestion issue if we have a lot of half-empty self-driving vehicles going around. So do you agree with that self-driving heavy electric trucks is a way forward, but how can we avoid the increased congestion problem that might arise?
Okay, I would say one of the simplest ideas to free the freeways up when the trucks are on there is they electronically gang together. Okay? Then all of a sudden the intermittent with the 2-second spacing or whatever they had now is just one long train, and all of a sudden all that other road is opened up. Does that make any sense? I'd have to.
Yeah, it does. I've read about it. I know that there are companies talking about it.
That with the bicycles too. They need to sense each other and electronically, essentially be connected. And for square type trucks, like his first iteration is, you'd be reducing the drag quite a bit. You would need the front one to have a nice streamlined body and the tail one to have a nice tail body, and the rest could be boxes in between. It'd be like a good train then. And then, you just have to have the systems talking to each other, and the third vehicle needs to turn off, so they all separate a little more, and he goes in another lane, and it'd be pretty simple nowadays. I'm surprised they haven't already planned that.
Yeah.
And you've been working on, we mentioned it in the first episode, but for people who don't know, what's the podcar, or what's the personal rapid transit system? Can you explain what makes that different from other modes of self-driving vehicles? Because it's self-driving and electric, but it's not, as we think about, people talk about today, self-driving electric vehicles on the road, on the regular road. So could you tell people what's a podcar and what's a PRT? Can you tell people who don't know about this?
Okay, personal rapid transit, PRT, that's been around a long time. When I invented my people pods, I wasn't even aware of that name. Then podcars, I think that comes from Christer Lindström. That's what he started calling them. I was to Sweden, oh man, that was probably the 90s to give a talk there. And but the cars, maybe you don't need to talk that. The trouble on freeway congestion with cars is, California Transportation Department, Caltrans, they say the average passenger capacity on a car is 1.2. That means 80% are being driven solo. Okay? And an SUV average weight is 4,800 pounds. But when you got say a 170 pound person and you got a SUV, it's like 3% of the weight is the important thing being carried, and the rest is powered, wasted on moving the machine. So this maybe has got something to do with the podcar improvement. If you design it right, you can be getting 300-400 miles per gallon equivalent electric. It has to be small, it has to be streamlined, it has to be lightweight. And the thing that happens is, every car's got two family. If they both have two SUVs, how many times are they carrying 4 people? Oh, the same with bicycles. There's bicycles that'll carry mom, dad, kid 1, kid 2. Isn't that fun when they can go out on a bicycle? Does dad take that thing to work when he's commuting to work? Hell no. But we do it with cars. We do it with cars. We have this 4,800 pound SUV or 3,500 pound sedan moving the teeny little people around. Because of crash safety. Autonomous stuff is going to eliminate that. And then even something like my little California commuter, one-person teardrop streamlined vehicle, the 157 mile per gallon thing, would be safe.
Just for people, there are podcar systems in the Netherlands and in Rotterdam. I've made a video about that, but there are at Heathrow. But the most famous one is, of course, in the US, West Virginia, wasn't it? Been running since the 70s.
Morgantown, that's
Morgantown. Morgantown.
Yeah, that's
Morgantown.
That's group transit. I wouldn't say that's personal.
Yeah.
And so, what's the difference there? What's the difference?
It's automatic. That's what that was proving. It's autonomous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, autonomous. Yeah. Okay. So otherwise, it's controlled by a human sitting in and controlling the vehicles. Is that the difference?
I don't think anyone's ever been killed in that one.
No.
Ever.
No.
And there was also the suspended, giant, like rail cars, Wuppertal, Germany. And they, that operated for decades. And then finally some guy left a tool in the guideway and something screwed up and 2 people died or something like that. But that's after all those years. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also another reason to go autonomous, and also go with, look at other systems. Elevated guideways is also something to look at.
I think
Well, the PRT makes sense because the software gets so simple in comparison. You don't have to worry about looking for children or dogs or garbage in the road. There is none of that. You just eliminate that part of the difficulty of the software. There's no cross traffic. You got to worry about going down to your offline station when you want to, and then making left and right hand turns when you merge. That's another reason for ganging up the pods the same way, because then you get a bigger, okay, if you have all these spread out like this, now you want to merge, you got to squeeze in those. But if you do this, then all of a sudden you got a big gap, and then here comes the next gang of collected vehicles. That's the future.
Yeah.
And you've been working on, you've been involved in podcast systems for a long time at the Skytrans. So what you do, it's an American company, right? American Israeli company. Is that correct? Or is it just, I don't remember now. But you worked on...
They incorporated and got some money, and we had a building starting in January of 2018. But now they're out of that, kind of, running out of money. There were quite a few austerity programs. So now they're waiting for a big influx of commitment from a company in India, and that's probably all I should say about that.
Yeah.
But I'm out of that now. I'm out of that now. Even though I was the inventor of People Pods and came up with the name Skytran, because People Pods, they thought of that. What was that movie? The Pod People, or the aliens are coming.
Yeah.
That was a good movie. I loved it.
Yeah.
But so why do you think there are still so few podcar or personal rapid transit systems out there today? Is it because, I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, we just talk about self-driving electric cars. That's the dominating, and trucks and so on, everything going electric, going autonomous. But we never basically mentioned the podcars or the personal rapid transit. Why do you think that is?
I think it is because people don't like change, number one. Yeah, they don't like change. The politicians, I don't think, are 1% of them even know basic physics and aerodynamics and structures. I doubt it. And you need to have an understanding, and then you can say, oh yeah, that makes sense. How come we didn't think of that a long time ago? So how do you teach everyone? That's the real problem. You need demos, and demos cost millions.
And we didn't maybe mention that, but self-driving or podcars are basically, they're most of the times we talk about them as elevated guideways. They're electric, and they are most of the times nowadays at least self-driving as well, and they have been for a long time. So it's a proven technology. Always. So that's something for people to keep in mind and look into. And I put a link to some of the so people can read about it and watch these podcar systems, because they are still very inspirational. I think we can learn a lot from that. But finally, what modes of transports would you like to see in the future? We've talked about self-driving electric vehicles, heavy trucks a little bit, bikes, podcars. Previously, for example, I had the CEO and founder of a startup here in Sweden that develops electric planes. That's perhaps something you're interested in as well. But what do you think?
Another nice thing, podcars, if they're elevated, what happens in a flood? Who cares? As long as you got your electrical power.
Yeah, that's a great. And you can actually pass under the elevated guideways. You can walk. You can have. You enable a lot of space in the cities that we don't have today. So you can walk under. You can have animals. You can have the nature preserved underneath. There are many benefits with that. So
that's one of the main reasons. You just eliminate the chance of hitting any kids, adults, whatever, animals, anything. Trucks. You're just above everything, and we have to go there. Some people claim, oh, that's evil pollution up in the sky, and I got some in my presentations. I got pictures of all the other pollution that we see. Here's like a zillion people at the beach. That's ugly. That's not the mountains, like you're hiking in the mountains. How about parking lots? They're ugly. Traffic jams are ugly. Homes, if you look at just all the homes we built to destroy the beautiful scenery. Everything is visual, except we grew up with it. We resist anything that's changed. That's the main problem.
The biggest, I'll end with this kind of thought for you. The most hot topic in Sweden right now is they're planning to, the state or the government are funding this. They are building a bullet train between the biggest cities basically in Sweden and the southern part of Sweden. And they're discussing whether to use pillars, guideways or elevated ways, for the bullet train. Or going just by on the ground, and they figured out that it's much cheaper to build it on elevated, because then you can build it faster on these pillars. They have built it a similar way in China, so I think they could half the time, the building time. But still, it's just a bullet train. It's not. It will enable faster travel between the biggest cities in southern Sweden, but they're only stopping on a few places, and a lot of these suburban areas or small cities, they won't be benefiting this, while a podcast system would. So something to think about. This would cost billions of billions to build.
But
This is the thing they don't look at, is what's the capacity per hour per dollar to build these systems.
Yeah.
And the train goes fast, but if it's got to stop 2 or 3 times, that screws up your average speed. Where the personal transportation doesn't have to stop till you get to where you want.
No.
You just,
At the
everything
same
is
time,
non-stop, so you don't have to go anywhere near as fast, and you can get places in less time. And people care about less time, but you still got to get to the station and leave the station the last mile. There's all kind of little solutions, from hoverboards to this lightweight stuff, but the older people are not going to use some of that stuff.
No.
But you got Uber nowadays, so you have a line of 10 Ubers and more coming in. You get off the bullet train and you go to where you want.
Yes, and Tesla is looking into starting their own Uber system. So they will have their electric self-driving cars, and at the initial phase they will use their own drivers. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting for Uber to compete with that. I think they will have a hard time, actually. I think Tesla could actually become the leading transport provider. We'll see what happens, but that's another topic. But really interesting to see, and you will probably see it first because you're in Southern California, so you're the pioneering place. You'll see it much earlier than I will see it.
We shall see. Yes, and when will they have like little 1 and 2 passenger Ubers, lightweight, cheaper to make, can still go on the freeway when you got to do that? Then you don't need the steering wheel and the gas pedal and the brake pedal.
No.
Yeah. The advantage of the pods, you don't even need the directional signals, the brake lights, the headlights, anything. So it keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. The cost to move how many people an hour is what it's all about. So I have some good solutions.
Yeah.
As soon as I file my new bunch of patents, I can talk to you at length.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I love what Robert Falk is doing. That's great.
Yeah. Nice to hear, and I'll try to connect you definitely, and I think he can learn a lot from you and Einride as well. At least hear all your inputs and as I end with this, as Elon Musk said, critical or constructive thinking is what moves innovations forward. He always asks people to come with criticism, constructive criticism, to find new solutions, because if he comes to a conference room and no one says anything, he just leaves. He wants people to say, "You're wrong, Elon," or this and this we can do, and this is something we have a problem here, we have to solve it, instead of people just saying nothing. So that's something, and I think that's where you come in. You can come from an outside perhaps perspective. We'll see what Robert and the team says, but thank you very much. It was really interesting to hear your perspectives, Douglas, and I hope to have you back again on the show at a later time, perhaps, and hear what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's always fun to be thinking. And
exactly.
It's inspirational, and there are people out there like yourself and Robert Falk, and they're doing things, and Elon Musk, on a different level than I am. It's great. Okay, great talking to you.
I don't think so.
Again.
We're doing, you're doing your stuff. We all need different perspectives. So but thank you. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Tell us what you think and share your ideas in the comments below. And don't forget, if you like the show, give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. In the next episode, I'll be back to share my experience as a full-time investor and talk about how you can invest in non-listed companies. Something few talk about, but can be really fun and open the doors to some fantastic investment opportunities. So stick around to stay ahead of the curve and stay electric here on the Evolution Show.